the business community has largely welcomed President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address. President Ramaphosa announced that he will soon sign a competition amendment bill aimed at breaking what he called cartels and monopolies that prevent young and upcoming businesses in the country. Now, the president went on to say that government will also introduce business incubators across the country that will help with funding of small businesses. Now, for more reaction on this, we joined in studio by Tebogo Khaas from the Small Business Institute. Tebogo, thank you very much indeed for your time. Tell us about what measures are currently in place to increase local demand.
When you talk about local demand, are you talking local demand in terms of products or local demand in terms of what exactly? Because as long as there is an uptick in the economy, there'll be demand of all sorts of goods. Yeah. And currently, we had a technical recession sometime last year. We experienced it, and now we've experienced some growth. I think it was about 1.5% slated for this year. So certainly, the more the economy grows, the more there's going to be opportunities for business to take part, and especially small businesses. But opportunities ought to be created and targeted specifically for small businesses.
Yeah. So reducing, reducing the consumption of imports, I guess, will be key as well. Increasing local demand and reducing the consumption of imports.
Absolutely. And there are specific niches or areas where we believe that government can do a lot. We've seen dumping in the poultry sector, for example, with imported poultry as well as red meat. Yeah. So from a agricultural or farming perspective, those are areas where we need to look into in terms of strengthening our trade, imposing trade barriers, or restricting or setting aside certain types of products to be sourced or yes, you know, from small scale farmers or black businesses.
But I guess the question is, are producers in South Africa will be able to adequately cope with the growing demand in a growing market?
There will be. Let's use poultry again as an example. There's been a lot of investment in the broilers, and most of them are lying fallow. If the government has injected millions of rands, if you go into the Dalstrom, Dalmas areas, you'll find small-scale black farmers who are running broiler farms which are not doing well. It's all about demand. It pains me because if you look at the supply chain itself, if you look at the prisons where companies like Bosasa had been supplying into, most of them are actually supplying imported chicken. You know, in other words, they are not sourcing locally.
Look, it's about stimulating economic activity and employment, isn't it? That's pivotal for SMMEs. The president also spoke yesterday about expanding a small business incubation program. What do we know about this program?
There has been incubators. There's quite a few incubators around, but it's just that the efficacy of them hasn't really been realized, or the impact hasn't borne any kind of traction that we would be happy with. And also, there doesn't seem to be coordination between incubators. But what is more important is the market, because you can incubate companies or SMEs thus far, but as long as there's no market for them to sell their wares or their products, and then also for innovation, you're just not going to gain any much traction.
Yeah, it's all about building this physical space as well as infrastructure and shared services, isn't it?
Absolutely.
To help budding entrepreneurs. I've got a bit of a clip from the president last night. He was discussing small, medium enterprises. This is what he had to say. Watch.
It has long been recognized that one of the constraints that inhibit the growth of our economy is the high level of economic concentration. The structure of our economy was designed to keep the assets of our nation in a few hands. This has stifled growth and enterprise and has to a large extent kept many South Africans, particularly young South African entrepreneurs, as well as small, medium enterprises, out of the economy and have confined them to the margins, to the townships, to the rural areas. As part of our effort to increase investment and to foster greater inclusion and create more opportunities, I will soon sign into law the Competition Amendment Bill. Now, the Competition Amendment Bill will give the competition authorities the ability to address this problem, but more importantly, it will also help in opening up new opportunities for many South Africans to enter various sectors of the economy and to compete with current players who have tended to monopolize certain sectors of our economy and compete on an equal footing. That is what we want to see.
Tebogo Khaas, the signing of the Competition Amendment Bill, is it a game changer, would you say?
I wouldn't say a game changer per se. I think the competition instruments have been used successfully so far. I think the Competition Commission itself would even call it a victim of its own success in terms of helping break down the dominance by the big firms, and also to try and pave the way for small businesses to participate. But because there's no coherence or coordination in terms of what is to be realized in terms of accelerating small business into the supply chain framework of large entities, we haven't really achieved the success that we ought to have achieved so far. What is interesting also is the competition regime, as it is now going to be signed into law, the amended one, is going to also encourage it's going to make it easier for SMEs to be involved in market inquiries, where the Competition Commission itself can go and make investigations in terms of in areas where there's exclusion or protection, or there are barriers that make it difficult for SMEs to enter into those markets.
Yeah, it's an important discussion to have. Thank you very much indeed for coming in and having this discussion with us. Always a pleasure. You're more than welcome to come in and tell us, if these programs are even working. We'd like to test it out and see in the future what happens.
Thanks.
Tebogo Khaas is from the Small Business Institute.